China once believed the Philippines was predictable, a smaller nation whose military presence could be managed, pressured, and ultimately ignored. For years, that belief shaped assumptions, strategies, and decisions made far from Manila. Power was measured in fleet size, missile range, and industrial output, and by those standards, the Philippines barely registered. But history has a way of punishing careless assumptions, and slowly, quietly, a different reality began to surface. The Philippine military was never designed to impress from afar. Its foundations were built on survival rather than spectacle, shaped by decades of fighting insurgencies, guarding remote islands, and operating in some of the harshest terrain in Asia. Filipino soldiers learned early that adaptability mattered more than size, that discipline mattered more than numbers, and that knowing the land could outweigh superior equipment. These lessons were paid for in real combat, not rehearsed on parade grounds. The jungle became a classroom. Dense forests, mountains, and isolated villages forced troops to master small unit tactics, rapid decision-making, and coordination under pressure. Mistakes carried consequences, and success depended on trust between soldiers and commanders. Over time, this produced a military culture that valued realism over theory, experience over appearance, and resilience over comfort. At sea, this mindset proved even more powerful. The waters surrounding the Philippines are among the most complex in the world, filled with reefs, shallow zones, narrow passages, and sudden storms. These are not conditions where massive fleets always thrive. Filipino sailors grew up understanding these seas, learning their rhythms and dangers long before they wore uniforms. What outsiders saw as vulnerability became an advantage, turning geography into a silent ally. While this experience accumulated, modernization followed quietly. Surveillance systems improved, air and naval assets were upgraded. Communication networks became faster and more integrated. The goal was never to match a superpower weapon for weapon, but to build a force that could detect early, respond quickly, and operate cohesively. Each improvement multiplied the value of existing experience rather than replacing it. The shift became impossible to ignore when alliances deepened. Joint exercises transformed coordination into instinct. Interoperability meant Philippine forces could operate seamlessly with advanced partners, extending their reach and credibility. This was not about dependence, but about deterrence. Any confrontation would no longer be isolated, and that reality forced planners to rethink risk calculations. What unsettled observers most was not the hardware or the partnerships, but the mindset behind them. Filipino troops carried a strong sense of historical identity shaped by centuries of resistance, occupation, and survival. That history lived on in training, discipline, and morale. When pressure mounted, steadiness replaced hesitation. When challenged, restraint replaced recklessness. Morale became a strategic asset that could not be measured on paper. Doctrine evolved as well. The military shifted from inward focus to outward awareness, from reactive defense to proactive deterrence. Presence mattered. Consistency mattered. Showing up, holding ground, and maintaining professionalism sent clearer signals than loud threats ever could. The objective was simple but powerful. Raise the cost of aggression without firing a shot. Gradually, the shock set in. The Philippines was no longer a background player. It had become a stabilizing force in Southeast Asia, capable of shaping outcomes through credibility alone. It did not seek confrontation, but it refused to be dismissed. That balance confused expectations and disrupted long-held narratives. In the end, the truth that surprised China was not about sudden strength, but revealed strength. The Philippines had always been preparing, learning, adapting, and waiting. It did not need to overpower anyone. It only needed to prove that it could not be pushed aside. And in doing so, it reminded the world that true military power is not always loud, not always obvious, and often underestimated until it is already too late.